Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 22-year-old master's student in Denver, and I'm making this video today because over the last few years I've seen a lot of content online about journaling, about its power, about different people's routines, habits, whatever that might be. Right off the bat, the first thing I want to say is maybe a bit of a spoiler, whatever it is. There's no perfect system. There's no perfect system that I might use, that somebody with a PhD might use, that a long-time productivity expert might use. There's no perfect method other than the one that works for you. And so mine is actually going to be in two parts. So this is my kind of morning time routine. A lot of people will just journal in the morning, just at night. I do both. So I have a morning and a night. More on that in a different video. But yeah, so a lot of people do hail journaling as, kind of this fix all thing, like get a journal and all of a sudden, your life will be perfect or something, which I don't think is true, but I do think it helps. I do think it can be valuable. So I'm just going to kind of teach you my routine. The other thing that I want to say is I think there are a lot of different methods out there, and you don't just have to stick to one. So what you'll see in mine, as I'm going to show you in a second, is kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different people's ideas and methods. These aren't all original. And so don't think that you have to come up with this perfect thing all by yourself. There are two other disclaimers that I'd like to give about this. The first is that I recognize that a blank page of a journal can be a really intimidating place to start. And so I think that's the other reason for having some sort of prompt or system. But I will also say that you don't necessarily have to have a prompt for every single thing that you're going to do. If you just want to look at a blank page and be like, this is what happened today and this is how I felt about it, great, do that. And then the one other thing, obviously, is this works for me because I have 30 minutes free most mornings to sit down and do this. Sometimes it even takes longer than that, depending on what I'm doing. And so do this however it's convenient for you. This is just what works for me. Okay, so one of the things you're going to see on any channel that's talking about journaling is people's favorite gear when it comes to journaling, which is of course a little bit different than videography gear or sports or clothing, whatever. It's not as complicated. That being said, something very simple can work great as a journal. This is this tiny little Moleskine journal that a lot of people love because you can put it in your pocket. This is great. My personal go-to are these ones that I can't pronounce, but I love them, and I hope that they will either tell me how to pronounce it or I will just Google it at a different time. This is the A5 size, so it's not full letter size or anything like that. I personally prefer the dotted pages as well because it's not a graph, but it's not lines either. I struggle with lines because if I want to draw a picture or a diagram or something, they kind of get in the way. Now these are pretty expensive. This one here was like 25 bucks wherever I bought it. And so it can be, a little bit, I don't know, potentially pricey depending on how often you're using it. They come in about 8 kajillion different colors, but I really love these ones because they are a hardcover, both front and back. They hold up really well. I have mine going back all the way to 2020, and they've held up just fine. Taking them on trips and kind of throwing them in my backpack and tossing them around, they hold up great. And then of course, the other thing that you're gonna need when you're writing in a journal is a pen or pencil. I used to write in pencil, but it's faded a lot over the years, and so I find it harder to read. So I did switch over to pen. A common favorite is going to be the Pilot G2. I use the 0.5 lead. It's a little bit more, I guess not lead, ink. It's a little more scratchy. It's a little bit easier to write small, and it doesn't bleed as much through the pages. Another favorite that I've been kind of getting into are these Precise V5s here, which might look familiar to some people. These do smudge a little bit more or bleed a little bit more, and so when I'm writing a lot, I prefer the G2s. But of course, an important caveat with all of that is it doesn't really matter what you're using to write as long as, it's something that works for you. Okay, so to my morning system, there are 5 total parts, which again is a lot for the average person, but it helps me. So the first piece of this is through the Daily Stoic from Ryan Holiday. So the first thing I do every time I'm journaling is I get out my actual, hard copy of the book, and then each day has a specific passage, basically. So today is April 15th, tax day, so it's sort of a tax-themed entry, and then each sort of meditation entry in the book corresponds to a journal entry in the journal. This is a really nice prompted journal and a really great way not to deal with the intimidation of staring at a blank journal page. It really guides you through, based on these passages in the book, what you should be reflecting on. It has different themes throughout the year. It's also great because they're not very long. They're pretty short little spots to write in, and so you don't have to write that much. It does also give a spot for a morning and an evening reflection, which I try my best to do both, but at least in the morning I do that first one. Next piece of what I do is what I would consider semi-prompted, and so I use Robert Greene's Daily Laws, which if you're familiar with him, he wrote things like the 48 Laws of Power, Laws of Human Nature, some of those other ones. This is pretty similar to the Daily Stoic, where it gives a sort of daily, I guess, law, for lack of a better word, but something to just kind of think about and base your day around. So in one of my hardback journals, what I will do is on the first page, I'm going to write down just different snippets from the entry in the Daily Laws, and so just little bullet points, like today's says, people need something and someone to believe in. That's, part of the larger entry, and then I write down word for word the actual daily law that he puts in there. And then there is another page that I'll do in conjunction with that, which is a reflection at the end of the day, which I'll talk about more in the other video, on that daily law. And so the goal with the morning part of this is to essentially read the context and read that daily law, and then look at, throughout the day, am I living up to that? How do I feel about it? Because, to be honest, I don't always agree with all of them. And so it is interesting to kind of read them, sit on it, and stew on it throughout the day. And then when I get back at night, kind of look at it again and say, okay, how do I actually feel about this as a concept? In that same journal, another thing that I'll do is I'll write down 2 pages following the Daily Law stuff. The first one at the top just says moments that I captured today. And the goal behind this is that as you're starting your day, you're sort of looking for the small moments, the important things. So for example, it can be as simple as like, I walked outside and I felt the sun on my face. That counts. That's a cool moment to notice. That's something important. Sometimes it's, I was laughing with my friends and I had a great time. Sometimes it was really snowy and I got my shoes dirty. Like whatever it is, the point of that is to get your mind ready to, despite all the emails, despite all the work you might have to do, get your mind ready to just sort of focus on the cool little moments that you notice throughout the day. And then the opposite page to that is one that says things I did for others today. Now, I'm not always the best at this, admittedly, but it does, again, just set your mind up to be in that position of, how am I going to serve someone other than myself today, essentially? Because it can be really easy to just focus on you. So those 2 pages definitely help just get me in the right mindset going into the day, and are more of a reflective tool at the end of the day. The next journal that I have that I do after the Daily Stoic and Daily Laws entry is this little leather one. I have a bunch of these. You can get them at Barnes & Noble. They have these fun gold pages. And in these, I just write to my girlfriend every day. She, at the moment, is long distance from me. And so it's a nice way to sort of just keep my mind on her. And then will be a nice gift when she gets back. Obviously, if you don't have a partner or something like that, then this might not apply, but it is a nice little journal, and I kind of like the old school leather look of it. Okay, so after I've done those first few things, the next thing I do is I actually have a second one of these hardback journals, so I'll have 2 of these kind of going at any one time. I used to just have one where I really compiled all of this, and so even before I had the other guided journals and things like that, just everything ended up in one of these. But it is, at least for me as kind of a tactile person, nice to have the separation. So there are a few things that go into this journal. So it's 4 total pages, and I'll kind of break them down by what they're for. So every morning, the first page is just a 1-page reflection. So you essentially take one of these blank pages, just one side, and you fill the page with some sort of anecdote. So, sometimes that's, I woke up happy, excited, anxious, tired, whatever, or I had this weird dream, whatever. The idea is, after you've done some of the guided journals, this is the place to really just sort of free write a little bit, which on some days can be really easy, and on some days obviously can be quite a bit more challenging. The second page is what I would consider to be kind of my most original method of reflection, which is something I call 3 for 3. Now, 3 for 3 is essentially just another set of prompts to use to get your brain kind of going in the morning. So the first thing is 3 reasons that you got out of bed that day. And so the prompt is literally what gets you out of bed in the morning. So it might be that you had assignments to do, as was the case for me today. I had things that were due before class that had to get done. So I woke up. Sometimes it's the sun shining in my face, or sometimes it's a little more profound, something like, I want to chase my goals and make a difference today, which is valid, but it doesn't always have to be sort of this earth-shattering grand thing. It can genuinely be, I had things to do, so I'm getting up. The second piece, which is unique to the mornings, is 3 things you're grateful for or appreciative of. And so sometimes that's as simple as, I live in Colorado, I love how sunny it is here, I'm grateful for that. It, again, can be as simple or as profound as you like. It's just a great way to express a little bit of that gratitude. The way some people say it is like counting your blessings in that early part of the morning. Again, as with some of the other journals, just getting your mind in the right space, going into a day that might be complicated, might be intense, or otherwise. In the Enchiridion, Epictetus says something along the lines of, when you go out into the world, expect it to be chaotic, expect it to be weird, because people are chaotic and weird. So getting yourself in that headspace. And then finally, that third set of 3 is 3 things you're looking forward to. So for example, I have a class that I take on Tuesdays and Thursdays that I really enjoy. The professor is funny, I like my peers. I'm excited for that class. I'm excited for the walk I'm about to go on once I'm done shooting this. I'm excited for the fact that I'm shooting this, whatever it might be. Just quick little things to get you excited about your life and about your day or your week to come. However you want to do it, that's the beauty. Okay, so the third page is something adapted from Ryan Holiday's Daily Stoic. I mentioned Epictetus just now. I've kind of been on a stoicism kick for the last 2 or 3 years or so. I think I have 3 total copies of that journal. So this page is essentially a morning intention setting of the 4 Stoic virtues, which are courage, temperance or discipline, justice, and wisdom. And the way that I tend to word them is something along the lines of, how will I practice courage today? How will I practice discipline today? How will I seek out wisdom today? Things like that. And it's just quick, short, like 1 or 2 sentence responses of like, for discipline, for example, I have a lot of assignments that are due within the next few days. Instead of, watching YouTube all day, I'm going to work on those. Or I'm going to raise my hand in class even if I'm not super sure of the answer, just because that participation takes courage and that's important. So that's that third page. And the fourth page every morning in this second journal is very similar to those Stoic intentions, but it's from a kind of guiding set of principles that a close friend and I came up with. In undergrad, we founded a fraternity essentially, and we're kind of discussing the values that we wanted to uphold each other to, and the other people that we would invite in. And those 4, it's also ended up being 4, worked out nicely kind of as a mirror to the Stoic virtues, but they are ambition, intention, diligence, and depth of connection. So ambition is pretty obvious. Intention, the idea is, how are you living intentionally every day, not just sort of going through the motions. Diligence is being true to your word. And then depth of connection is also pretty obvious, but kind of rare among Gen Zs like us. The fourth page is the exact same as the third one, where it is essentially, how will I practice ambition today? How will I live intentionally today? And just kind of setting yourself up and giving yourself some early understanding of how you want to go about your day to live in accordance with those values. Now, one of the things that I think is important to mention about that is those are just the ones that I use, and maybe another time I'll make more in-depth video on the meaning of each of those. Maybe at some point I'll even describe how we came up with those 4 particular pillars, if you want to call them that. But the point is that if you have kind of a set of values that you've said you want to live by, obviously those are nice words, like saying, I'm an ambitious person, I'm an intentional person, that's great. Or I'm a courageous person, I'm a disciplined person. How? Prove it, And this is a great way to essentially say, okay, how will I prove to myself that I live by my values today? You can find a billion different virtue words online, pick which ones speak to you. Those are just the ones that I tend to use. And so as far as long and sort of intense reflection goes, that second hardback journal is the end of that. The only other tool that I really use in the mornings is going to be a hard copy planner. I do use an internet calendar. I use Outlook because my school is on the Microsoft system, so that's just what integrates the best. But sometimes it is nice to just have a written to-do list. This one is from Hobonichi. It's the hardcover one. It's a Japanese brand. They make all kinds of cool notebooks and things. The thing I like about this is it's 1 page per day. It has graph paper, which apparently I really love, and a lot of other fun little pages within it. And so sometimes just having that written to-do list can be a nice thing. The last thing I want to mention before I wrap up this video is a couple of honorable mentions of systems or structures that a lot of people use that I've tried and were just too time consuming or whatever other reason, that I still think could be valuable to you if you decide that you want to kind of take this base system and edit it to your needs. So the first of those comes from this company called Panda Planner, which essentially makes, just another sort of fancy planner with different features. But one of the things that I really liked that I took from one of theirs was this idea of separating priorities and tasks, because a lot of people just write a long to-do list in the Notes app on their phone, and they have no way of knowing which are more important to them. And so this specific system essentially tells you that you can only have 3 priorities per day. That's it. So if that is a particular task, fine, but then you only get 2 other big picture priorities that you get to focus on through the rest of the day. You can have an unlimited number of tasks if you like, but in terms of big picture stuff that you want to focus on throughout your day, you only get 3. The second one is one that I did used to use, but I did take out for time. I got to a point where I was trying to do all the things that I've listed here every single morning and every single night, and it was just too time consuming. But this one is from Andrew Huberman, and say what you will about his content. I don't know anything about sports science or any of that stuff, but I did find this valuable. So his method essentially consists of 4 different pieces, one of which is pretty familiar. So the first is gratitudes, however many you like, typically though longer sort of written out sentences. So I'm grateful for, or I'm appreciative of X because of Y, like sort of a more detailed explanation. The next piece is any fears or resentments you might have for that day. So if you have some big meeting coming up and you're unprepared, that counts. Or if you had a difficult conversation with somebody previously and that's still festering, you can also add that there. Another section which is a little bit different is things to look out for. One of the things that Epictetus says, you might notice I've been doing a little bit of study of the Stoics, is that if you go out into the world, expect it to be a weird and confusing place because people are weird and confusing. And so I think this tends to follow that same idea of just, as you're going out into the world today, what do you need to watch out for? And then finally, things to strive for during your day. And so again, that's a little bit of a longer reflection, a little bit of a deeper method compared to mine of, these are just some things I'm looking forward to, but that's another system that you could add if you like. And then finally are mind maps. Now these work super well for a lot of people, whether you're working on a particular project, making a YouTube video, you have class assignments, whatever it might be. These are a really great way for a lot of people to visualize the thoughts that are going on in their head. My issue with a few of these is that I was sort of forcing myself to use them. And so that's one thing I'd really like to leave you with is don't write just to fill the page. Don't make a mind map just to make a mind map. Don't do gratitudes just to follow the system. If it's not working for you, if it's not powerful reflection that's going to make your day better, you're wasting your valuable morning hours, in my opinion. So again, with all of this, the biggest thing to remember is that it's a tool for you to help set your mind up for the day ahead. It is not about the perfect system, the perfect structure, the perfect brand of journal or pen or guided whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as putting pen to paper every morning helps you have a better day, however you do it, awesome. That's why I do the system that I do, because since 2020, I've tried a lot of different methods, and this is the one that I've landed on, of taking a reasonable amount of time in my day, but not being burdensome, but then also allowing me to feel better once I've done the journaling. So this morning, for example, I knew I had a lot of assignments to do. I knew I had a lot of things to take care of today, but I took the half hour before turning on my computer and getting my whole setup behind the camera ready to go, because I just needed that time to get all of the stuff from here down on some paper so that it was out of the way. A couple bonus tips that I would add just right here at the end. If you can, do this with some morning sunlight. It really helps just get your brain sort of woken up, and it's a nice sort of, wow, I'm really grateful for the sun kind of moment every day. And a lot of other people are going to say something similar to this, but if you can do this before you look at your phone, before you check your emails, before you get the barrage of information that is, the news cycle every morning, that would be really great, because I think then you're already sort of mentally fortified, if you will, going into looking at those things and tackling the tasks of the day. So ultimately, journaling is obviously a super powerful tool. A lot of other people have talked about that. A lot of other people have proven that, even scientifically. This routine is just what works best for me every single morning. It's worth waking up an extra 30 minutes early before I shower or whatever else in order to do this routine, because it gets me in the right mindset. Thanks for watching this video. I'll be back soon describing my nighttime journaling routine as well. But until then, thanks for watching. Cheers.